Not only did I not have the desire to be like everybody else, I was actually happy. I didn't have that real, that pull to fit in and to blend with the other kids. I left home very young and moved to England, so I feel like I was made in Canada, groomed or sort of shaped in the UK, and sort of living the dream in America. Between the ages of like 14 to 15, I was living on the streets. I went through a really rebellious period. I'd sort of seen and done a lot, and I got to 16 and I was like, I don't want to go to school. I want to quit school. I want to start my life. I just want to be in the world. I arrived 3,000 miles from home, had no money, didn't really know anybody, but I was so happy to be there. There was this draw from the time I was 12. It was like, I remember the first time I heard the Smiths and Jam and those sort of bands. I walked in with my bags from the train station, and as we're walking up the stairs, I'm like looking on the walls, and there are swastikas. And we had hot water, we had electricity, we didn't have a fridge, we kept our food cold by putting it on the windowsill. I moved out of the squat like 3 months later, and eventually ended up working at the BBC. I wanted to be in the entertainment business and writing, directing, producing, and really telling stories, and I knew that if I wanted to do that in any significant way, I had to go to LA. I mean, I have to say that from the time I was young, if I had this notion about trying something new, my parents were always really supportive. You know, when I started playing hockey in Canada, girls didn't play hockey. I certainly had no interest in wearing dresses and doing what the popular girls were doing. Never, ever. And that's certainly remained this way now that I'm an MTV executive and I have 10 tattoos and, you know, went to my job interview wearing, you know, boots and shorts and a floppy hat and a safety pin necklace. And I was just like, this is who I am. Creepers I've been wearing since, you know, kind of my London days. They're sort of a staple of the sort of British youth culture. That's always sort of been, you know, in my heart. Death to the Pixies t-shirt, you know, because they're, I remember the first time when Doolittle came out, that record, I remember walking down the street in London and put it on my CD player Walkman, which was the thing at the time, and I just remember going, oh my god, this is like the best thing I've ever heard. I tend to not buy very many big ticket items because I'd rather, let's say I have $1,000 and I just want to go and buy some clothes. I can buy one pair of shoes and maybe a top versus I can go to ASOS or Zara or H&M and buy a ton of stuff and be able to mix and match. This thing keeps falling apart. I've had it for years, and my assistant figured out a way to put fishing wire to revamp it when it falls apart. I love metallic with something unexpected like plaid, just because I don't think any of these things really go together. I just like sort of things that don't make sense. I'm a major tennis fanatic, so this is a little tennis racket pendant that my mom got me. And these are boxing gloves. I used to box. I did that for a few years when I lived in LA. And I like violent jewelry. I'm very violent for a Canadian. This generation that's coming up, the millennial generation or Gen Y or whatever we're calling them now, they're not a particularly rebellious generation. You're told every day that you're special and that you can do anything you want, and you share everything. So there's really nothing to rebel from. And I actually would love to bring back the art of rebelling. You know, the reality of any creative business is all incredibly subjective. There's no science to it. I think this is a good idea. This is a story that I'm passionate about telling, and you really have to stick to your guns. The first show I took out were these 3 girls called Kim, Khloe, and Kourtney Kardashian that nobody had heard of. The craziness, the things that sort of the shenanigans that ensue in reality shows when you're shooting are constant because people are unpredictable and life is unpredictable. You really have to know how to make adjustments, even if you go in with a shooting plan and you kind of think you know what you're going to get. Well, life is weird, right? So strange things will happen and you have to learn how to adjust as things are happening and continue to create a story that has a satisfying beginning, middle, and end.